Good morning, everyone, and welcome to How Do You Cope? Today's topic, we're talking about cults. I am so honored to have this guest on this show today because my entire time when I was binge watching Netflix at home in March 2020, all I watched were the documentaries on Nexium. Nexium, if you're not aware, was the cult that was in upper state New York. And I just went down a rabbit hole and started learning everything and everything about anything in regards to Nexium. My heart breaks for any people that ended up in that situation, and it just gave me a bigger understanding about everything that they can be about. It's incredible. Cults can be covered up by showing self improvement programs, businesses, yoga classes, religious groups. It's absolutely incredible how it's easy to get sucked into them. I've watched interviews of people saying that this can happen to anyone. And you might sit back and wonder how. I've watched interviews from people from Nexium survivors saying that, well, now I've learned the strategies in order to change anything in my life. And it reminded me of a member that had Tourette's when they entered the program. And through their strategies, they taught the person how to control their mind and control their body. And he relinquished his Tourette's. And when I sat there and thought, wow, Nexium was disguised as a self-help improvement group. That could have been anyone. And then when you think about the complexities of that, when somebody has shown you so much love and compassion and ability to truly heal yourself, why would you not trust them? Why would you not believe them? And why would you not give them your loyalty? So it is with all honor and everything that I am here with Steffi, who joins us from Peru to tell us about exactly all of this and how this suddenly happened to her. And I'm just so excited to share this inspiring motivational story that everyone can hear. You can heal from anything your life comes at you. Thank you so much, Steffi, for joining us.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
So please tell us kind of your process, your journey, just everything. I'm dying to know.
Hmm. Yeah, so first of all, I would like to start off by saying I'm okay now. And, I wasn't back then, but, I think a message of hope to start with. It's not always easy to come out of a cult, but it's very much possible. And you can really like rebalance yourself and find your center again. So for me, it started actually when I was traveling. I was traveling and I was very open, to having new experiences. I was on my healing journey, and actually my healing journey had become much more profound because I had become more aware of certain challenges I had on an emotional level, a mental level, and physical, spiritual, like the whole thing. But obviously, I was only beginning to really go into the deeper layers. And I think that's kind of how it started for me. I was very, very open and maybe not always able to discern what was, maybe good for me and what not so much. And so I would go here and there to like a workshop, like very much focused on self development, spirituality, healing, this kind of things. And I remember there was this event that very much drew my attention. I was like, oh my goodness, that's so amazing. And so I went, and that was actually my first contact with the cult because they're actually in a lot of different places on the planet, this specific cult I'm talking about. And yeah, so that was the first connection. And I pretty much liked the workshop actually. It was very nice, the workshop in and of itself. What they were teaching us to do, because it's also a lot about, healing yourself. The cult is built around basically you becoming more healthy and happy, so the vision, at the very least that they portray, is that. Okay, so that's also what kind of drew me in. And Yeah, so I remember like going to that workshop as I mentioned, and I do remember at some point they did like a channeling, and so there was like a channeling, like a message for each and every one of the participants. And it's very funny because I remember like the channeling, it was very correct, like the information that came through, because the lady who was channeling didn't know me, right? So, and then she was channeling, and the message was very true for me. But I also felt like, whoa, like, wait a minute, this is like one of my core wounds being exposed here. I remember thinking that, but then also kind of just, actually, when I now think back on it, I think that was the first time I felt like a small little red flag because um, I felt a bit invaded, like, I mean, it was true what she said, but I had not really given my full permission for this to be brought up, if that makes sense. Obviously, you can say, it's a channeling, so you never know what's going to be, you know, but just in my personal experience, I felt like, oh, that's weird, But anyways, so then my traveling experience, because that was at the end. Actually, I traveled for a year, and that was like the very last, I think, the very last few days actually, even of my traveling experience, the whole year that I traveled. And so I went back to my native country, and then I think, yeah, it took some time before I actually got in touch with um, the the cult there, because they were also present there, right? And then I remember, like, back at the workshop, they also told, oh, but oh, you live there, so you want to go and look for them because they're also there. Blah blah blah. There's a lot of workshops, and that's how I kind of got introduced to the cult in a more yeah, in a more intense way, so to speak. Um, yeah, so I guess like it's a bit like the classic story where you kind of there's a lot of good things going on, like you're being helped to heal yourself in a way, or there's like some positive experience you're being offered, but you're also being on a different level, you're being kind of drawn into something that is not per se so healthy for you. In my experience, and I think it is the case with a lot of cults, if not all of them, there's a kind of cult leader, or there's like a kind of hierarchy where you kind of lose the connection with yourself to an extent. And I'm sure it's different for everybody. I know for myself that since I was diving into like the whole healing process and my inner world and stuff like this, I was not aware of all of the wounds that I had. So I was a bit naive, I guess, in that sense. At the same time, I had a very genuine wish to heal. It was very sincere. And yeah, it was very sincere. And I kind of also trusted a lot. Like I couldn't imagine at the time how someone could, try and help you have that wish and at the same time take advantage of you. That was like in my world, that was not an option, you know?
Yes.
Um,
Well, you
so
go
yeah,
through this process. Sorry, you
yeah.
go through this process, and I just want to touch on a few things there that you said, like the red flag about the channeling and invading that space and you didn't invite them. Like that really, it's just like if I was here and people have written on Nexium comments like thank you for your testimonies, that could have been me, right? And so I'm really enthralled right now about what you're saying in the sense that they are invading your space because as someone, and I'm sure as you know now, because you do your own, you help people with their own self healing journeys, is that when you are a true professional and when you truly get this help, there is nothing we are trying to do that makes you uncomfortable, right? We are a true professional in a self help world is okay with somebody going through this process at their own pace, at their own healing space. We're not asking you to jump from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. It's more of a how can we give you the skills in order to healthily go through this process the way you want to, right? And I think your red flag is right on. I think that obviously hindsight changes things, but in the reality, if somebody was just like, even if they were in it and they watched this video and they had this inkling like, am I in one? Am I not in one? Is this authentic? Is this not authentic? Some of just these little subtleties, right? They took the power away from you. Whereas a true coach, count like helper, self healer, empowers the person back, right? And I just really wanted to emphasize that in that regard of just someone who might be lost in the moment. They might have this intuition feeling, but they are surrounded in an environment where no one else thinks that, no one else believes that, no one else has those feelings. So they might be disregarding them, but I'm just here to try and emphasize those little feelings and this moments that you're talking about and this empowerment. We would never take your power from you. No, I do this work because I want everyone to be empowered. So I just really wanted to like resonate with you that I think it was more than channeling. I think that was a true feeling in that regard. So, yes, please continue.
Yeah, and I think, about that, it's very interesting because the thing is that in the cult, they also give you tools so you can empower yourself. But that's where it becomes interesting because you think like, oh, okay, and you get tools as well that you can use freely, you know? At the same time, the message that is being given in a very subtle way, and this is where it becomes tricky, in a very subtle way. At the same time, you're independent. You can empower yourself with your tools. You don't have to attend to any workshop. You can just learn. You do one workshop, you learn this tool, whatever. You go home, you can make money off of that, so to speak, right? um, at the same time, the message that is being given, and that is, the more you get involved, the more this message is being repeated. Like, in a way, you get these tools thanks to the cult leader. Without the cult leader, you would never ever have these tools. You see how it works. But they're not so explicit about it, and definitely not at the very beginning. So that is why it's like kind of going through kind of levels. Obviously, nobody calls them levels because that would raise your suspicion. But it is kind of like, it's like a basic workshop. And then you're like, if you like it, you go back. And it's kind of every time you go back, you are more called into it because it's kind of double bind. It's like, no, but you're empowered, you're free. And at the same time, you receive the message that you're also a bit dependent. Does that make sense? But it's subtle.
Wow.
It's very subtle, and it's a paradox. And that is what I feel very much. If you go in there and you have difficult experience, you haven't healed, as was the case for me. I had a lot of trauma already, and I had also a very big what's this called, like a tendency to be dependent, which was me. So I'm going to be drawn in very easily because maybe I'm looking for a kind of someone to tell me what I need to do, or like a kind of savior, or, and that is where you get hooked in. And so the double bind is extremely stressful because you're constantly receiving two messages or more at the same time that just don't go together. So there's a very deep sense of incongruency and very deep unsafety. It feels
Right.
unsafe because it's not, it's like on different levels, you're receiving, you know, different streams of information. And our system, our nervous system, and, everything, your brain, you don't know how to cope with that, which makes sense because it doesn't make sense, you know? Yeah.
Wow, I find this fascinating because even your words resonate with me so much. Because even in March 2020, when I sat there and just was so lost and definitely had a tendency of codependence as well, I'm sitting there and I said to myself, if someone could just give me the process to fix what I'm going through, I would do anything. And I mean, it's the definition of hitting rock bottom in your life. I mean, unfortunately, my rock bottom got even worse than that insight was. But the reality is that even in that moment, had I come across anything, and I mean, I did, I came across Nexium on the TV. I was glued to it. I was researching about everything and the survivors and just how they got pulled in and like everything. And I'm just thinking, wow, that could have been me, hearing your words makes me see like, it depends on the timing, it depends on where you are, it depends on what they're teaching you and what you want to learn and grow from, right?
Mm.
So that's incredible. I do wonder for yourself, when you were going through this process, did you have the awareness of the nervous systems being disconnected? Like, did you have awareness that like something was off, the feeling was off? You talk about the two different messages, right? Because there's the subliminal message essentially, and then there's this message you are feeling empowered and you actually are feeling like, "Wow, this is something here." Did you did you feel it yourself when you were going through it? Or is it a hindsight feeling that you now see what happened?
It is more it's a very interesting question because so let me try and structure this. Yeah, it's more in hindsight where I understand that the unease that I was feeling um, was that. But the thing is, and this again connects to what I was saying, the thing is, in a cult, how it works is that when you feel for some reason not at ease with what is being presented or what is being communicated or whatever, it is always going to be turned back to you. So if I at some point have questions about, wait, but the cult leader is doing that, that's weird. Yes, but you have resistance about the cult leader. Look inside yourself because there may be some darkness there. You see how it works. It's so very manipulative and at the same time very clever, because if I am confused to begin with, and I feel all dependent and I have all of my stuff coming up, all the things that I haven't healed yet within myself and I haven't come to terms with, I'm just going to buy this. I'm going to buy this. But it's part of the paradox. And that is how it is so toxic, where you basically can no longer have your own healthy standards and frame of reference, because any thought or emotion or sensation that you might have or intuitive inkling that might say like, wait, maybe this does not 100% resonate, is always supposedly you not being aligned with the light or whatever it is. But now when I say it, it almost makes me laugh because I'm like really. But I mean, I don't
Yes.
mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying, like, really, can you send out such a message? But yes, that's kind of how it works. At
But
least that's how.
I'm so sad to hear this because the people that do these things obviously are very connected to how humans work. Any healthy coach, any professional self-healer that truly wants to make positive impact in the world uses these strategies to some degree, one way or another, to have people to overcome limiting beliefs and to push past resistance or survival mechanisms we have automatically created in order to just survive. And we have to get over those humps in order to be better. And I sit and I hear your words and I heartbreak for every person that I read, like, or listened to a documentary about their own experience. One lady told me there was a moment in the documentary that a lady said, "Wow, for you to have joined that group," she was just a stranger, "you must have been really trusting." And she said, "Well, I was." And the brokenness that comes with that And now seeing this side of it, of the manipulation of a well-educated person, but chose to use it in a fashion to manipulate others and for their own egos and their own good. In the end, Nexium was used as a sex distortion kind of situation, and it is only because of that that the guy went to jail. And it is so sad because if the sex wasn't even involved, he probably wouldn't have even gone to jail because there are actually no cult laws in the US. Mind manipulation in the US is actually not a illegal strategy. So it fascinates me to think like the strategies that are actually used for good is exactly what is being used in these circumstances, and it completely saddens me and makes me sad for every individual that comes across it in a negative way, because I feel like these are the strategies that need to be used in a positive way, pushing people forward and being better. And
Mhm.
the reality that they use the blame is just an unfortunate, it's an unfortunate strategy that just unhealthy people use. If we're in toxic relations or in a unhealthy moment or an unhealthy relationship, we might want to blame the other person, right? And that can cause a lot of control. So I'm just sad and I'm sorry that this is what's happening. I've never had firsthand experience, but hearing about it and now understanding the process of humanity, it saddens me even more.
Mhm. Yeah, you know,
How did you know that you were in it? How did you when did you learn? Like, how that mind manipulation can be so strong. So at what point was your aha moment?
well, at some point, so there was this person who, within the hierarchy, because in the end, that's kind of, what it is, or at least in that cult, there was like levels, kind of levels. Um, well, this person was very close, so to speak, to the cult leader. And at some point, this person, out of nowhere, decided to get out, which was like, for me, and I think for many other people, like completely unthinkable. It was like the world shattered because it was like, wait, if this person is leaving, what does that mean? So it was
Mhm.
again for me through another person. It was not through my own insight and realization. It was actually thanks to this. And this person also like sent out a message that at the time I didn't understand that well, but that the message kind of said like, this is what will now be said about me from now on, and that is exactly how it. So this person had, somehow had the insight, yeah, and that was basically what when this person left, I also kind of left because I felt like, without this person, it's not the same thing, and also it kind of helped us to kind of think a little bit more. Yeah, that's how it was.
Yeah, I do
More.
wonder, and obviously I don't have firsthand experience or anything, but like I said, I was just so glued to Nexium that, like you said, it's kind of a level system. And I wonder at some point if that person got to this highest level that they essentially offered the person something that was completely just against their morals, and they knew that for them that was their big red flag. For that person, it was a red flag. Oh my gosh, what did I get myself into? I'm out of here. But it's so amazing that at least the connection to that person allowed a lot of other people to also take exit before having to be presented to that level and those decisions and those hard, manipulated, controlled already decisions. I remember watching one of the documentaries, and the lady was literally saying she went for a walk with the leader and he wanted to know how controlled she was. So when they were walking, he said, lick the water in the puddle. And for me, it was like, wow. And I look at the big picture as an outsider because I'm not in this, so I can see this, right? And I'm just like, he got some of those people to lick that puddle. And when they licked that puddle and then when they drank that water, he knew exactly how controlled they were. But for that girl specifically, she knew it was a red flag, and shortly after that, she started making her exit. So there's
Mhm.
always a point, I think, they get to this level and they wanna know how mind manipulated you are, and then it's either you're kind of in or you're kind of out. And I'm happy for you in your case, you didn't get to that level. I'm so happy because I think by the time your brain ends up warped in some ways because of the tactics they've used, it's hard. It's very hard. It's not the person's fault. They are victims. They have been programmed a certain way and are in an environment of people who are also encouraging everything that's going on. So the combination makes it really hard to see the truth.
Mhm.
And my heart breaks for everyone and anyone that was ever in a situation like that, for sure. Do you have any words to anyone in the sense that, like, going through this, or maybe they're on the fence, maybe they're part of their brain is saying something's off here, and the other part is like, but I'm totally immersed in this. Is there any words for someone that's gone through it, what you would say?
Mm. Yes, I would say with all of my heart and soul and body, everything, I would say there is not one person or being on this planet or anywhere else that is that powerful or that enlightened or that wonderful that you don't deserve to check with yourself what is true for you, because that is a trap that I was in. Like, it was all out there, while no, it is here. And no matter, how many followers this person has, and it's just irrelevant. If you are no longer listening to yourself, you're out. You just, but get the support also that you need, because it's not the easiest thing, but it can definitely be done. Yeah. Yeah.
That's so inspiring and so insightful. I'm so happy you are where you are now. And you can share with everybody now, like you've gone on your own healing journey. And how did you like get that started? Or how did you overcome what you were taught with the cult, because they were trying to teach you a healing journey and then be able to navigate to your own healing journey. How did you make that transition?
Yeah. So my healing journey actually started before that. And I think that the cult experience was like a huge reflection of what was going on inside of me. But yeah, for me, what I feel is that I could see the pattern um, after that, like the pattern where I'm so disconnected from myself that I look for something outside, to whatever help me or I understood where I was looking for validation, external validation. Because you said, I'm glad you told me, like, I'm glad you didn't get to that level as the other person, but believe me, I wanted to get to that level. So at the time,
Yeah.
this was for me like, this is the world. So, and I think also bit by bit, I've allowed myself, at first when you come out of the cult, it's like coming out of a universe. Okay, I don't even want to say a world. It's a universe. It's like, you all of a sudden you come out of this bubble and you're like, oh right. And then you start feeling like, oh, I have my own feelings and my own thoughts. Because if you all this, all the time you get like brainwashed or something, and you get like all this input, and whatever you are thinking or feeling gets like washed away, then you are no longer in touch with yourself. So you cannot have the red flags. I mean, you can obviously you can experience them, but it's very easily like washed away, if that makes sense. So anyways, when you get out, or bit by bit, you really like come in touch with yourself again. And then you start seeing the patterns. And then you're like, yes. And you can have experiences outside of the cult, for heaven's sake. you know, like, oh my goodness. Like nearly all of my friends were like also in the cult, or like, the other way around. I got to know so many people, and it was like, it's okay for me to do this or that, even though the cult might have an opinion of that. So it's like it's this whole new, it's like being reborn. It's actually a beautiful process. But and then obviously healing from what you also mentioned, that makes you feel sad, and me as well, like coming to terms with the fact that a person that offers so much light can also have a different agenda, and like kind of integrating light and dark. Basically, that was my personal process also. And yeah, knowing that, and this is a bit controversial, but knowing that also people who do this kind of things, and it's never okay, but they must have their background as well in not so easy experiences. By which I do not mean to say it's okay. I'm not saying that, but it kind of helped me understand how a person can come to the point where they do such horrible things, you know?
Absolutely. Wow, you've definitely gone through a healing process. You make me want to cry,
Oh,
because you simply to be able, what you did right there is you sent loving compassion. And part of the process is you can try to send loving to compassion to people who have wronged you, because you simply understand the fact that their actions come from pain. And but to be able to authentically be able to do that, and other people call it having unconditional love, is you had to have truly healed from what was deep within you. And I just want to resonate with the fact that you said it's about being able to have your own thoughts and your own feelings and working through them, because no one else should tell you how you should think or feel.
mm,
Thank you so much, Steffi, for joining us today. I was so enlightened and inspired and brought to tears and the whole nine yards. And I'm just so happy you are where you are today. That's so important to me. Thank you for joining.
thank you. It was so lovely to be here.